Hey all, Connor here from Kamerastore.com, joined as usual by Nico. We are back with another top 10 video. We have a few of these that we're gonna produce for y'all. And we're starting now with 35mm cameras. So these are the top 10 35mm cameras as dictated to us by Google search results. So it's not our opinions, it's not the store's opinions, it's you guys really that are deciding what cameras show up here. So if you want a specific camera to show up next time, have your friends search it, I guess. You leave a comment below. It's always a healthy discussion in the comments of these. There's so many great cameras, and we could never summarize all the good ones in 10. So,
yeah. Okay. Let's start with number 10 on the list, the Olympus OM1. It's the 35mm Olympus camera that had interchangeable lenses. It was quite a small design. It is a very bright viewfinder, and also I think it has probably a little bit of help from the new Olympus cameras because there's OM cameras now coming out.
That's true.
So you always have to think on the search results have something to do with some SEO-friendly names, but the OM1 is the first one that started it all, and it's a great little SLR from Olympus.
Yeah, it's an awesome camera. I mean, it really changed the game, I think, in terms of the size of the camera. A lot of earlier ones were quite big in an attempt to put as many features in as possible. But Olympus managed to fit those features in a small body, which people found very attractive. Like you said, the viewfinder in here is like outstandingly bright, especially for something this size. It's just very user-friendly.
Yeah, and this is the time they were fighting towards what would rangefinder or SLR be better. So if you think about the close era, the SLRs were really big and bulky, and this became almost the size of an M2, M3, probably sometimes even smaller depending on the direction. Smaller, but with interchangeable lenses, and you can see through the lens, which is a huge benefit. So I'm not surprised that it's on the list. Olympus is still a great choice for the 35mm camera.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with it.
Next in the list, we have the Nikon F4.
And the other end of the spectrum in terms of SLR size, the F4 is quite a big camera and quite a heavy camera. I was a little bit surprised to see it on this list. I feel like they're sort of underrated and undervalued, at least compared to earlier F models, the F3 and the F2 specifically. This is pretty cheap, and you get autofocus, you get every single program mode that you could ever imagine. These support lenses up to AFS, I believe, in terms of controlling the autofocus and the program modes, and just like some really cool things that you can get for not so much in terms of money.
I think the reasoning for the Nikon F4 to be on the list is the F5 is bulky. A lot of batteries, takes 8 AA's. It weighs quite a lot. It still looks very much like a modern kind of like mirrorless big body like Olympics kind of camera. The F3 has gone up in price. The F2 and the F original also are quite expensive, but this one has kind of the bells and whistles of an F5 without having that weight and that price. They are more affordable and they are kind of like smaller in some way. So I'm not surprised that they're here. You'd be surprised that, why is some other Nikon cameras not on the list? It is complicated with Nikon because the F is a search term that is used for lenses sometimes too. So having a look at the data, sometimes there's a little contamination on searches. So F4 might as well be that someone's searching for a lens from Nikon that has an F4 aperture and then it pops as this. So you have to see why, but this one's feature packed, that's for sure.
Yes, it is. I mean, they're great cameras, they are. Yeah, they're kind of in that sweet spot where you get all those autofocus features, but it still does feel a bit like a manual camera. You get all the dials and manual ISO and exposure comp. Everything's clicky and satisfying.
Yep. Okay, number 8 is the Canon A1, which, So the 8th in the list, Canon A1, a little bit more prosumer than the Canon A1. I'm not a huge, I have not a lot of knowledge about the A1, but I do know it commands a little bit of a steeper price usually. And it looks a little bit more pro than the AE1. But the AE1 has, gone up in price, so I don't know what the reality is.
Yeah. I mean, the market segmentation of this, originally at least, was, that this was the prosumer model. This was the first camera to have all 4 program modes. So program, aperture priority, shutter priority, manual. Pretty cool. And you can switch freely between them, and it's really a quite nice user experience. That did come with a bit of a price hike at the time compared to the AE1 or the AE1 program. Nowadays, it's really not that much of a difference.
And they look significantly similar.
They do,
So in many ways, for many people, they might be looking at A1, maybe find an A1 for less price, and it has more features. Also uses the Canon FD lenses, which are great and quite affordable still today, even though cinema people have been buying them up, especially the rare editions with the SSC and so on. But they're a great little, like if you want to get into film, there's no camera that looks more like a film camera than the A1. The A1 is basically the same thing, and then you have all the lens selection if you want.
Yeah, it might even be better for a new photographer since you have so many different options in terms of the different program modes, and yeah, can't recommend it highly enough.
And then we have number 7, the Nikon F3, which I think is in the front there.
Yes.
It does make sense to have this one a little higher than the F4 because it is a bit more famous than the F4 in some ways. You don't think so?
No, I think so. I just, every time I do the film advance on one of these, it's like, it reminds me of how smooth it is. I really think it's the smoothest of any camera that I've used.
But yeah, number 7, Nikon F3.
Yeah.
Lots of lenses. It is electronic as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of people held to the F2s for years, but it is less bulky, heavy-ish than the F2 with the big prisms. And you have the interchangeable prisms. You don't have a hot shoe. You have to use this Nikon weird dovetail adapter. But it is a very good camera. It was a professional camera. Still today, they are lasting pretty well. They do have some electronic issues nowadays, but if you find a good copy, they tend to last quite a long time.
And notable, of course, compared to the earlier Fs for having aperture priority auto exposure, which was a big reason that they wanted to go to that electronic shutter.
Yep.
But yeah, great camera, super smooth to use. Highly recommended.
Then a bit of a new one in the list. Number 6 is the Yashica Electro 35, which is a camera that they made in the thousands or hundreds of thousands, so they're extremely popular out there. But it hasn't been on our list before. We have recently done a huge batch of them on the store, so you never know if someone maybe has found them due to that, because obviously we have some advertising and people find them and search them from us, and it's nice to buy something that is being serviced or checked properly. So the Electro 35 has a fixed 45 f1.7. Looks, is it a Spider-Man's camera? Am I wrong?
Yes. Yeah, that was Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I believe.
Had this.
Used this camera, yeah.
Yeah.
The Canon F1 as well. Or maybe it was Andrew Garfield. It's fine. It's Spider-Man's camera.
But it's a good, it's a great camera. If it works well, it'll shoot greatly. It's a rangefinder camera, which to some people, when you're getting into rangefinders, you're looking at Leicas and you're looking at the prices of Leicas, you kind of get a little scared. And then someone says, well, there's other rangefinders that are not like us with non-interchangeable lenses, and the Yashica Electro 35 is basically number 1 in that search. Canon and the Canonettes is a great other alternative, but the Electro 35 does have a bit more, in my opinion, aesthetics towards that, like what you expect a film camera to look like, which is a big thing in 2025. But yeah, this is number 6 on the list.
It is a beautiful camera. They are, the batteries that they originally were made to be used with are not produced anymore, but there are readily available battery adapters to use more common batteries. So
Yeah.
we should have
make
them. Yeah, we
ourselves.
should have them on the site, and plenty of Electro 35s as well that you can buy and use today.
Then talking about random rangefinders, maybe not. We have the number 5 Contax G2. We have a G1 here, so for those in the comments that are going to tell me that I'm wrong, we know. But the G2 is a pseudo rangefinder, so it uses the kind of rangefinder system for focusing, but it's an AF body. And it has interchangeable lenses. It's the Contax G lenses that have like the motor built in, and a lot of people think they're broken until they mount them on a body.
Yeah.
Because the aperture scale is like all twisted. But it's gained a lot of clout nowadays, because first, they're beautiful. They're made on titanium. They have black version, which if you can find one, lucky you. They're very expensive. and they have the quality of the lenses is superb. The quality of the bodies nowadays is not so great. The focusing system on the G1, for example, I think it was, I can't remember from memory, but it was only focuses on vertical like contrast.
Yeah.
And then the G2 had both options.
Yeah, the G1 has a passive, that rangefinder style focusing system, which can be a little bit slow, a little bit inaccurate, especially with longer lenses. The G2 added a second, more active autofocus system that is meant for fine tuning and really helps this system.
It's a camera system that if you are going to get into, I recommend you shoot your first 5 rolls being very careful, because I've shot it in the past and the first roll was half of them were not focused because I just thought they had a better AF system, used the Nikons and Canons from a similar era. So be wary of that. Usually it's probably you using it more than the camera's fault. It has, it does what it does well and it doesn't do well with what it doesn't do well. So be careful with that. If you're shooting fashion or you're shooting fast pacing things, like just know that this might not always nail focus. So take more pictures than less, I would say.
Yeah. I think it's worth it. I think the lenses are some of the best lenses I've ever made.
Yeah, and there are even people adapting them for years to Leica M mount. So the 45 f2 has been adapted to M mount plenty of times, still is, because the glass is worth it to not, the bodies are not great, the lenses are great. People put up with the bodies because they still want to shoot them, but yeah, that's the main issue, is the focusing problems and the electronics problems. Number 4, we have the Nikon F2, which is the other one here. You want to hold it. This one's heavy.
Well, yeah, the Nikon F2 is probably the most classic professional SLR, at least. I know we have some other ones that are maybe more popular, but if you're thinking pure mechanical, like a MP mechanical perfection, we have plenty of people in the company that would argue that this is mechanical perfection, the F2. Just everything is smooth, everything is tactile. These are bulletproof and bomb-proof.
Yeah, and if you change the prism, which here you see is pretty big and it looks like Frankenstein a little bit, because it's top heavy. If you put the small prism, the plain prism, you won't have any metering, anything like that, but it just turns into a really sleek little SLR camera. And then you have all the Nikon lenses that you can use on it, which makes it a great camera to shoot.
And that's one of the main advantages of a system camera like this over something like the Canon AE1, which we'll talk about later, is that it does have these interchangeable prisms and focusing screens, grips, winders, all kinds of accessories that you can use to basically tailor it to whatever style of shooting you're doing. It's not quite as modular as, say, a Hasselblad or an RB67, but still a lot of variation that you can do, which is very helpful.
And like Connor said, if you're comparing it to like a MP or it does have 1/2000 of a second. So, there you go. You can shoot a little wider open if you're into that. So you can shoot a f1.4 lens in, 1 EV more than if you were shooting on a Leica. So that's another feature that is pretty interesting. Plus you see what you're shooting, which some people really enjoy.
Seeing what you're shooting is helpful sometimes.
Yes. Now we get to the top 3. So number 3 is an interesting camera, is the Olympus Pen F, which we have a Pen FT here. It's funny because we said it's the top 10 35 millimeter cameras. One could argue that it shoots 35 millimeter film, but it's half frame. So the Pen F shoots a half frame size, so you get double the exposures. There's 72 exposures on a normal roll, 48 on a 24 roll. It is a SLR, so you're looking through this array of mirrors that bounce around like a crazy place, and then you see the image through there.
Yeah, it's super interesting that you have this very rectangular shape that is very different from this sort of standard SLR that you're thinking with this hump, the prism hump. And there is like an ingenious system of mirrors, basically that connects the viewfinder here on the back to the mirror here on the front, which is actually sideways relative to standard full frame
vertical
35 millimeter SLRs. So it moves left and right, or instead of up and down. It's super cool, and it gives the camera this very unique look. I would say timeless, especially with the lenses. It's just a really beautiful camera.
Yeah.
And half frame is becoming increasingly attractive to people that, film is expensive and processing is expensive. So if you can get twice as many shots out of every roll with only a small decrease in image quality, and, depending on how big you're printing or how big you're displaying the images, it's probably not even noticeable with a lot of these lenses. These are really, really good lenses.
I mean, for social media, this is plenty. The cool thing also is the way they did the shutter on these cameras. Traditionally, shutters either are curtain going one way, or we have a little like shutter going up with a honeycomb, I think, on the f2, stuff like that. This one has a rotary shutter. So it's kind of like those shutter angle on a video, like a cinema camera, where it's rolling fast and doing that. There's kind of like a big cookie with a cutout, and you can feel that slap when you shoot it, because it's doing it in a very different way, which is the only camera that I'm aware of that uses this system. But they managed to make the camera quite small thanks to that, between the mirrors going in a different direction, making it vertical instead of horizontal, making it half frame, and then making that rotary shutter. The funny thing is it will sync flash at all speeds, and for the longest time I know there's an ongoing joke that the only Nikon that can sync flash at all speeds is an Olympus Pen F with an adapter, because you can adapt the Nikon AIS lenses to it. But yeah, it's a great camera, and now with the Pentax 17 in the market, half frame is more in vogue than ever. This one actually is timeless, like you said, in aesthetics. It looks pretty, it feels good. It has like a nice to hold and hand on. Obviously metering is an issue, but then again, if you're used to metering yourself, you can use it. They do have some version of meters and adapters and all kinds of things.
Yeah, there are versions with and without meters.
Yeah.
And external meters are great and readily available these days. So.
Yep, but they're a great camera, and I'm kind of happy to see it on the third position of the top 10.
Well, yeah, I mean, for a long time, the biggest issue with these was repairability. As in people weren't fixing them because it was sort of in that not sweet spot, the opposite of a sweet spot, the terror zone, where it wasn't quite valuable enough to be worth repairing, but it was valuable enough that people wanted them.
Yeah.
So finding a good one was hard.
And putting this with a 38, I think it's 1.8, 38, 1.8, is just a small little combo that's really nice and sharp. So highly recommend it. I own one. I love it. Number 2, everybody's internet trolling favorite is the Leica M6. This is not a surprise that in the top searchability is the Leica M6. Everybody that thinks they should have a beanie and shoot film should own one. Leica re-edited it or relaunched it because the SEO was already there, so they didn't have to do any extra work in 2022.
No marketing necessary.
No marketing necessary. It has the usual lackluster features of an M, which is shutter speeds from bulb to 1 second to 1,000 of a second. It has a meter, and now they've re-engineered the meters. The Amsterdam Camera Repairs has re-engineered the light meters because they are tending to fail nowadays. Yeah. It obviously is a beautiful camera in black. Some people like the red button, some people don't. It has silver versions. You have the TTL version. So that's the thing. There's 3 cameras that are added into one when you're looking for search. Plus then all the Leica lenses and the third-party lenses that can be mounted onto this, which makes it a great option if you want to shoot film and you like rangefinders, and the price doesn't make you want to go for something else that's in the list.
And I mean, I do think you said like it has all the sort of negative qualities of the M cameras, but it also has all the positive qualities of the M cameras. And a light meter, which is a big, big difference compared to the earlier ones. The M5 is the only other mechanical M camera with a light meter.
Yep.
Because the M7 has, but it's electronically controlled.
Yep.
So this is like, which is why it became so popular, that sweet spot again, where it's fully mechanical. It has that classic look that they've been working on since the 1950s. But it has the light meter, and it's a pretty good light meter that, like you said, can be repaired nowadays.
Yeah. And I bash on it, but I own 2, so I mean, I know from experience what people think of them. But it is a very pleasant camera to use. It is very comfortable to carry. It's not that heavy.
No, small, quiet.
Yep, and it's just kind of easy to take on a trip if you want. Obviously, AF and other bells and whistles are great, but I really enjoy shooting rangefinders, so this has been a nice camera to own. Plus, in my opinion, I wanted to support their efforts, so I did buy the new one. But yeah, that's a great camera at number 2. And we service them, so you can get it serviced, which is kind of nice too.
Yeah.
Then number 1 is the other internet meme, is the Canon AE1, which is no surprise. It was made in the, I think this one moved into the millions of units, if I'm not incorrect.
I don't know if maybe that's combined with the sales of the A1 program.
Yeah, program and AE1.
But yeah, this is sort of the film camera that you see quite often, because there are a lot of these out there. Not so many in this black that we have. Most of them are silver. Yeah, one of the best entry-level cameras at the time of its release. It had automatic features. It has manual features. And they were made in such great quantities that many of them exist today.
They tend to overexpose so slightly, which to a lot of people shooting film is usually a good thing, because
nice thing,
negative film, people are not shooting positive film that much anymore. So negative film is really, really happy with more light. So if you're shooting gold, portrait, any of that stuff, you expose one more stop, which these cameras tend to do, then you're gonna get a little bit nicer tones, and the shadows won't be so crunchy, because color negative in the shadows doesn't usually do great. Like slide film will go black, which is really pleasant, but these will go like a muddy brown.
Yeah.
So this does that classic kind of like film look that people are looking for now. Plus, there's millions of them out there. Some service, some not, but everybody has had one friend or another that has one in their household. So you can pick it up. They were very affordable for years and years.
And then I think they still are.
They picked up a lot of price before, when they started getting popular, because there's not that many working. But there's still a decent entry point for film. I would suggest you get a manual camera and learn, but then again, not everybody wants to learn manually, and it's hard the first time you shoot film. You don't understand the aperture and the shutter relation and all that, so this is kind of a simple step in.
It's a way to dip your toes in and still get that sort of vintage feeling, because it is a camera from the 1970s.
Yeah, and they all have this Canon cough, or that little sneeze sounding. But if that's just the dry shutter, some people service them. Some people service them correctly. Some people don't so well. But
it's something to look out for.
Even if it has the cough and it doesn't annoy you, usually it doesn't have a huge impact on the usability of the camera, except for the fact that it sounds your cat sneezing.
Yeah,
that's the only thing. So these are great cameras. Change the light seals, put a battery, shoot a roll, even if you don't have it serviced. See the results. If you're happy with them, keep shooting till it stops working, and then get another one.
Yeah, they are electronic cameras. Like you said, they're not mechanical, so that electronic nature does mean that the shutter tends to be accurate until it very suddenly is not. So even if they get dry and get that Canon cough, like you said, they can be trusted pretty well to work, unless they really don't work, and you'll know that quite quickly probably after your first roll. Yeah. But great cameras. We have plenty on the site, and you should pick one up.
And that is the top 10 from your searches on basically results from 2024. We obviously have our own opinions about what should be in the list. You have your opinions on what should be in the list. It's always great to hear. There's no Minoltas. I'm sure
there's no Minoltas.
A lot of people will be there saying, where's Minolta and where's this? We don't make the results. We just analyze them, make a list of 10, and explain why we think it might be here. It's always good to hear. And like Connor said at the beginning, if you really want a camera on the list, just search the heck out of it, and it'll show up here. Yeah, go online. Or maybe you don't want to make it famous, because then the prices will go up, and maybe if yours breaks, you can't pick a second one up. So, film cameras are plentiful. This is the list of 10 that are this past year the most popular. Next year might scribble a bit. Maybe there'll be new additions. Who knows? There's film cameras coming out, and people will be searching. We have the Rolly, the Pentax, and other stuff.
Yeah, new film cameras are very exciting times. Hopefully some of them get on our lists at some point.
But thanks for watching. It's been Nico and Connor here with Kamerastore. See you in the next one.